third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way second
And welcome back to the Stupid Money podcast. And we were the kings of the jinx, I think, this time around, because the last episode was if Bryce Harper can carry the Phillies all the way, and then Larry got hurt the next day. So I think we're good on that, doing that for anyone in the near future. But a whole lot of kind of breaking even right now for the Phillies because they lose Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber on the same night, the Thursday game against the Marlins. Game which the Phillies had a 3-0 lead and missed a call, and Zach Wheeler kind of blew up and kind of caused 2 injuries. And they've been kind of treading water since then. They're exactly 500 since that happened.
I think they're 5-5 now after the Bryce injury.
Yeah.
I think they were 5-4 going into yesterday.
Yeah, so they split the series with the Marlins, went out to Chicago, and Trey Turner went off, and then they went down to Atlanta. Trey Turner went off again the first game, winning the game, and then the offense scored 1 run in the next 2 games. Not having Harper, Schwarber, and Real Muto, who's been out, along with the fact that they already have a hole in center field, is pretty ugly. It wasn't good, but I don't know if you could really take anything away from the offense because of that. More so, like, some of the pitching lately hasn't been that great. Like, Sanchez blew up. Rangers had 2 blow-ups now. Wheeler has been good still. He hasn't, I'd say, dominated a game in a while, but he's still been good. Mm-hmm. So I think more so it's keeping an eye on how the rotation is going to fare as we head in to the last 6 games for the All-Star break.
Yeah, the offense for me hasn't been bad. I think the bigger concern for me is that right now the Braves pitching kind of has their number. It seems like overall the first game they lit up Fried, which was good to see, even if it didn't necessarily translate to runs right away. They had 10 hits through 3 innings, and you're missing Harper, Schwarber, and JT. So they're doing, glass half full. They're doing that to Max Fried without those 3 guys in the lineup, which is definitely good to see. But it just seems like there's so many holes in the lineup without those guys. And obviously, we're expecting Schwarber and Harper to be back. We're recording this on Monday, so we expect them to be back tomorrow. Definitely Schwarber, it seems, and I think Harper ran at 100% today. So it seems like he's going to be back too. And I don't mind them being cautious with JT because, like, believe it or not, the catchers have actually been, relatively decent platooning for him. So I don't mind them being cautious with a 30-plus-year-old catcher who has had a lot of wear and tear on the knees the last few years. But the outfield is a big problem. Not, taking a step back from the Phillies in general, but I saw a tweet today or yesterday that Brian Reynolds is second in the National League in OPS amongst outfielders at 827. 827, second in the league for outfield, which especially corner spots is, notoriously a power hitting position. And, Soto's in the American League now. Judge has obviously been in the American League. So a lot of, like, the big name guys are in the American League, and Harper moved out of the outfield. Acuna got hurt. But still, like, 827 being the second highest OPS amongst outfielders. And with that being said, our guys aren't even close to that. Like, Castellanos is in the 600s. Whatever the hell goes on in center field definitely isn't near that. And left field is like pretty much non-existent when you're trotting out, Dahl and Merrifield. It's so fascinating that, every year we have these guys have big spring trainings and you get excited about Merrifield, Dahl, Jake Cave had a big spring last year. It's like, wow, these are really good depth pieces. And then all of a sudden they have like one or two good games. And next thing you know, you look up. And I think this week at one point, Dahl was like 0 for 12 with 11 strikeouts. Like, it was a fun first few games. We talked about what he could possibly bring depth-wise to the lineup. And all of that has just completely gone out the window. And they have to make at least one trade for the outfield. I know you're kind of in the department to go get a center fielder and then also get a righty bat to pair with Marsh in left field. And as this goes on, and we're, obviously missing three big pieces of the lineup, but as this goes on, I think if you can swing the right deals, I'm kind of in the same camp as you that when it gets time for the playoffs, you can't have all of these holes out there. And if it comes down to would I rather, we were big against him last year because of what we kind of see in the news about his personality. But if it comes down to a lefty in the playoffs pitching, would I rather have, Brandon Marsh, who hits like 150 against lefties, Christian Pache, who is an automatic strikeout at this point, or like a guy like Tommy Pham? I will pick Tommy Pham 10 times out of 10 just because those guys aren't doing anything right now for us.
Yeah, I mean, if they do get Luis Robert, I'm asking for Pham to put in the deal. I just think that it fixes both your needs. And I wouldn't be opposed to, instead of, like one big bat, like a Bellinger or Robert, if you went and got Taylor Ward to platoon with Marsh and left, and then got someone like the McCarthy kid on the Diamondbacks to play center. You know what I mean? Like getting two steady guys instead of one big guy might help more. I don't know. I think they need to deepen the lineup a little bit because obviously they have three guys out. But like once you get past Castellanos in this lineup right now, and even he's not playing, where he should be, it's a steep fall off, and it really doesn't help that Marsh has not gotten past pretty much being a platoon player, and Bryson Stott has been one of the worst bats in the NL this year. His bat speed is down, his expected batting average is low, like everything on his Savant page is blue, and he hasn't hit a home run sweat since that Padres series. Like, when was the last time he had a home run? So like that. Those guys also underachieving has not helped this situation at all. But yeah, I think they need two bats. Obviously, when Bryce Harper comes back, Cody Clemens played the outfield on his rehab assignment, but he's a lefty. So I don't know how much that helps you unless when they plan to go like lefty heavy against a righty, if Marsh plays center and Clemens plays left. I guess that'll be like some the situations we'll see. But other than that, like I don't know. This obviously is not getting fixed internally. I'm going to just see what they do. I know like people started bringing up the Crochet Robert package and including Painter in it. I think I'm on that boat just because I think we would hope that Painter could become Crochet. He's 20, 25. He's not old at all. I think he still has 2 or 3 years of team control because he came up in 2020 like Bohm did. And Bohm's not a free agent until after 2027, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. So, you're getting length there too. And also, that's also when Zach Wheeler's supposed to come off the book. So if Crochet is good, you can re-sign him, and then you don't even think about Andrew Painter ever again. So, like, I would be in on that kind of deal if they could swing it. I think it makes them the ultimate favorite in the NL. But I also think it keeps those guys away from the Braves and the Dodgers because they're two teams that get brought up with those guys too.
I see a tweet like every other day that the Dodgers are looking at like that same exact package.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, the Phillies have, and the draft is next week, and I've been saying this for a while, the Phillies actually have a farm system to make a move, and it's going to get deeper next week after another draft. Does it suck that Mick Abel, who is probably your top trade chip coming into this season, is absolutely unplayable? Yes. But I think you can work around it because guys like Clausen and I'm going to butcher this name, that Olga Harry kid, right? Like their stock is way up that maybe it kind of offsets it. But yeah, I'm not really in on Jazz Chisholm just because like it's another lefty. Like I don't think it could really be a lefty unless it's like a serious power bat like a Tucker or a Bellinger. I don't know. I think it needs to be a righty. They need to bring in at least one righty. Now, if you bring in two guys, like if you bring in Taylor Ward to platoon in left, then maybe I'd be okay with Jazz Chisholm in center. But I think if you're only getting one guy, it can't be a lefty.
Yeah, no, I am completely out on Chisholm. I've never been a fan. We saw him in the wild card series last year. He was non-existent after all this talk about how he's, from a different planet and how he's like this guy. I think the baseball world tried to anoint Jazz Chisholm something that he wasn't, nor has he ever been, entirely too soon, putting him on the cover of video games and giving him all this publicity just because he does a Euro step in the home plate after he hits a home run. But I'm kind of out on Bellinger. I think if they're going to make a big blockbuster trade, it has to be for Robert and Crochet. And I talked about it on one of the last few episodes that I wasn't as keen on Robert as you were, just because of some of the injury concerns and the news that it's the White Sox are looking for a package equivalent or greater than what the Nationals got for Juan Soto. And we're kind of seeing what that package looks like as Mackenzie Gore's having a very good year. CJ Abrams is an all-star, and James Wood just comes up and has like the fourth highest average exit velocity in his first series as like a 20-year-old. But I think Dombrowski has this reputation of, ripping farm systems dry to win a World Series. He did it in Detroit. They didn't win a World Series, but he made a lot of big trades for them. He did it in Boston, completely tore their farm system down and won them a World Series and kind of established their core. Mm-hmm. With the way that Mattingly and Barber have been developing pitching and, how Dombrowski's not necessarily sat on his hands, but made marginal moves to kind of round out a roster the last few years at the deadline. I think this is the year with the depth in the farm system to go all in on where you're kind of at. I think the last few years too, they kind of handcuffed them because the record was never good. Obviously, right. They were never punting because of what their core consisted of with their roster construction. But like, you're 8 games ahead of the Braves. You're the best team in baseball by a game or two right now. Like, this is the season to go all in with your chips. And if you're going all in on guys like Robert and Crochet, the nice thing about that all in is it's all in with 3 years of team control left. So you're not going all in on a rental that you're not guaranteed to get back. And with how they've been developing pitching, obviously Abel's a miss, but, Clausen was maybe one of the top 5 pitchers in all of minor league baseball the first half of the season. Allegari's strikeout numbers are insane. And even Gene Cabrera is moving up the system. Like, he just got promoted to Double-A. His walk rate's going down. The strikeouts are going, very high. He has 91 strikeouts in 77 innings. Like, they have shown that they can turn, smaller pedigree guys like Ben Brown and Gene Cabrera and Allegari and Clausen into these not elite, but higher end pitching prospects. And that kind of tells me that they are dispensable just because of what they've been able to do with the system. So as far as I'm concerned, this trade deadline, I would trade everyone, or everyone's on the table for me but Aiden Miller. Mm-hmm. If you have to give up Aiden Miller to get Crochet, Robert, and Pham, I wouldn't be mad if they did it, but I'd prefer them not to. I'd rather them kind of package something with, Painter, Crawford, Kaba. I think for me, Miller's untouchable, and Tait, I'm hesitant to let go, but I will if I have to.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I will say, like, Crochet and Robert though are like cornerstone pieces to a franchise.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're talking about this about rentals or like Taylor Ward's a good player, but he's a marginal player. He's not a guy you build around. And bringing in these two guys kind of extends your window in a sense because Schwarber's contract's up after next year. Real Muto's up after next year, though I wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies and Real Muto start going to a year-to-year thing, kind of like Kershaw does with the Dodgers, and see if Tait kind of rises up the system or if they need to find someone in between those two guys. But Castellanos has 2 years left after this season, but if you look at how this season going, I don't think he'll live out this contract here. So, you bring in Robert, all of a sudden, a solution in the outfield that you thought would maybe be a problem after Schwarber and Castellanos are off the books. So, and Crochet, I mean, he's a lefty. They'd have 3 lefties in the rotation, which would be interesting. But these are just guys that extend your.
Robert's contract is 6 years for $50 million.
Yeah.
For obviously he's had a lot of trouble staying on the field, but like that type of money for talent is like impossible to find anymore. And Crochet's going to be on arbitration. He's a free agent in 2027 when he'll be 28. So you have this year and 2 more with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, look, yeah, these are obviously long-term solutions. So it's a little easier to part with prospects when that's the case. So I guess we'll see. I don't know. The Phillies, it was funny. They weren't hot in the rumor mill for a while. And this past week, it really accelerated, like rumors going all over the place that, Phillies looking at center fielders, Phillies looking to make blockbuster move. Like it has kind of inflated in the last week or so. So clearly people are hearing things, which I guess is good. But I just think with where you're at with the farm system's in a really good place. And you're also kind of towards the end of the window, kind of like how I mentioned with some of those guys coming off in the next couple of years. And obviously Turner and Harper here for the long haul, but they're starting to get up there in age a little bit. So this is definitely.
I will say, my only concern with Crochet is how they kind of, we saw what happened when you get into inning range territory with Turnbull. He exceeded his career high in innings this year, really, and immediately got hurt. And then you have to watch Michael Mercado take 10 pitches to throw a strike against a team with a winning record and then get lit up when he starts to throw strikes. We know what Taijuan Walker is. Garrett Crochet started as a reliever. He got hurt, and then he got hurt again and got Tommy John. So this is his first year back. Before this season, his career high in innings was 54. He's already at 105. So it'd be interesting to see what he looks like down the stretch. I think it helps that once he got back from Tommy John, they knew that they were going to start him, stretch him out as a starter. So it hasn't really been like a guessing game like Turnbull necessarily was. But it's still something to keep in mind that I believe he was a reliever in college at Tennessee. They used him as a reliever that year. They drafted him in June and then immediately brought him into the playoff bullpen in September. So he's kind of been a reliever his whole major league career until this year, and he's already doubled his, career high in innings. So that'd be something to watch if they trade for him. Do you kind of, put him on a restriction so he's healthy for the playoffs? Because while you still have 2 more years with him, realistically, the buying move is for this year. You're not saying, oh, well, we're trading our top 4 prospects for him, but if he gets hurt this year, so be it. this year, and then the 2 years on top of it are a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I know Sanchez and Suarez have kind of struggled recently, but you're deep enough in the rotation where if you have to put him in the bullpen, you can.
Yeah.
And then, you don't have to make a bullpen move. So he could kind of be a swing guy, kind of like how Strom was last year.
Yeah,
like
but
if you need him to emergency start, or you could just try to make him a multi-inning reliever and dial him back a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about it in the group chat the other day, but if they go get a starter, you have the flexibility to move a guy like Ranger back to the bullpen that we've seen him succeed there before. But imagine putting Crochet in his 100-mile-an-hour fastball back in the bullpen as opposed to Ranger's 93. And that's not a knock on Ranger. Obviously, he's been, top 3 in the Cy Young for the first half of the season. But we've seen in the playoffs that strikeouts kind of tell the story. And going back to the World Series year, that Astros bullpen, when they were just bringing every guy out throwing, 98 with cut or, 99 and then a wipeout slider, it's not as much of a location game in the playoffs. It's here's a fastball, hit it. And when you think the fastball is coming, that's when they snap the off speed off of it. So having Crochet back there with that power stuff, as we've kind of seen Alvarado go through his typical mid-season rough patch and Strom start to get figured out a little bit as he doesn't throw as hard. Soto's been good, but if you can add another power lefty back there that has been throwing 98 as a starter, but now it's like, hey, you have 1 inning tonight. Throw as hard as you can like you used to when you were a reliever. Because his average fastball velocity when he was a reliever was 100.4. This year it's 97.4, so he's obviously kind of channeled that in to get more innings and not kill his arm, which is good. But if you can get back to that average of 100 on the fastball in a series in October, that'd be a lethal weapon to just be able to bring out at your disposal. Kind of like it reminds me of Chris Sale, how the Red Sox use them.
Yeah. So that's nice about bringing a guy like him in those. There is flexibility. So I guess we'll have to see what happens there. But really quick, so All-Star ballot, or not ballot, final, not even finalist roster. There we go. All-Star roster is out. Phillies have 7. So Harper was the top vote getter in the NL, so he was automatically in. And then Trey Turner beat out Mookie Betts for the shortstop starting vote, winning 51% of the vote, which is super funny. If Betts wasn't hurt, obviously it probably would have been him. But Turner, the way he's played lately, definitely earned that. Bohm absolutely blew the doors off of Manny Machado, which I love because you could have signed Manny Machado, but Alec Bohm ended up being better. So those 3 start. Realmuto lost the voting to Contreras. Schwarber lost the voting to Ohtani. And Castellanos and Marsh each barely missed in the outfield voting. That was close. I think the highest guy had 21% and the lowest had 12. That was very tight. So they almost got in. But then Ranger and Wheeler got in, which is not much of a surprise. And then Jeff Hoffman and Matt Strom got in, which was a little bit of a surprise that both of them got in. I think maybe one of them being there wouldn't have been a shock. But yeah, 7 representatives for the Phillies at the All-Star game, which I'm pretty sure is the most in franchise history. Yeah. So pretty crazy. I don't know. Seven's a lot, I think, and they easily could add a couple more with that fan voting.
Yeah, it's kind of looking at the least important position in terms of the All-Star game, but I'm glad that Strom and Hoffman got in. Obviously, Strom had a rough, week and a half with the Marlins series and the Braves and Cubs series. He wasn't particularly great, but he went a month or so without an earned run. He had a really good first half, well deserving to be an All-Star, and I'm glad they didn't kind of just base it off of save numbers or something, because I think with how things have kind of trended in baseball with analytics being so prevalent, a reliever doing a job in the 7th or 8th inning to keep the game scoreless is kind of a lost art or kind of a lost appreciation. So it was good to see them. I'm curious to know how. I didn't really look at what the pitching rosters look like to see who the relievers particularly were, but I'm curious to see where Kirkring would have fell on that scale. I think after his last appearance, he's been in the last 24 or 25 times the Phillies have put him in a game with a lead. He hasn't given up an earned run. So if they're putting him in, chances are the next guy's getting the ball with the score being where it was or with the Phillies leading by more because Kirkring just doesn't give up runs with a lead. So the bullpen's really good. And I think losing to the Braves and the last game against the Cubs, people may have forgotten it because the last week and a half wasn't particularly great for them. But the bullpen's like a top 5 unit in baseball, and pairing that with where their rotation has been, obviously there's going to be some regression in the second half just because it'd be, nearly impossible for them to be as good as they have been. And the schedule gets, a little bit tougher than what it has been. But the pitching is really good, and Caleb Cotham is probably going to make a lot of money because of it. And I think that the All-Star reflections or the All-Star selections reflect how good their staff is as a whole, because there definitely could have been more.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be interesting. So it looks like Zach Wheeler is definitely not going to pitch in the game because he's scheduled to pitch the Sunday before the All-Star break, and the game's on Tuesday. So you don't have to worry about him pitching, which I guess maybe is a good thing. But that's the one notable for the Phillies with the All-Star game, and that goes. And I don't know how I forgot to bring this up, but Alec Boehm is going in the home run derby. So I don't know how you feel about that. Between him and like Bobby Witt, I said it's gonna be the double derby. So I don't know. Weird year. So it's Azuna, Gunnar Henderson, Pete Alonso, of course, because it's all he does. He's more good at that than making the playoffs. Boehm and Bobby Witt. So they need 3 more, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough because it started off strong because Gunnar was the first one in.
Right.
And Gunnar and Witt are, arguably the most important position, shortstop. And they're young, and Witt signed his contract. Gunnar hasn't signed his contract yet, but he's obviously going to get a large contract. He's leading the league in WAR at however old he is, 24, if he's even that old. But 2 of the most marketable stars at such a young age at the most important position, and then the rest of the jabronis that are in this dirt. Pete, the biggest dork in baseball. Ozuna, we all know his deal. And Boehm, whatever. I don't know. It's this run has been so good for the Phillies the last 3 years, and sandwiched in the middle of it are 2 of the most embarrassing home run derby moments ever. Schwarber losing to the corpse of Albert Pujols in the home run derby, and whatever the hell Boehm's going to do next week. I don't know. I will say though, if he gets paired against Alonso in the first round and beats him, I will be insufferable.
That would be great. Boehm jersey coming right up if that happens. I would love that, actually. That'd be so funny. Yeah, so before we look forward to the All-Star game, Philly's interesting homestand here. 3 at home against the Dodgers and 3 at home against the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's are really bad, but somehow competitive, so it's interesting. They're the only team to score 19 runs this season. They've done it twice, which is so weird. So the Dodgers will not have Betts, and I'm pretty sure the Phillies do not face. Well, Yamamoto's out, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
And they don't see Glass now.
It's Miller Miller and Stone in some order for the first 2 games. Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, and then I know we have Nola in Game 3, but I checked today on Thursday and it was still TBD for the Dodgers.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that. But if Schwarber and Harper are back, I think Harper puts up numbers against the Dodgers. He likes playing against them. So interested to see how that goes. But kind of a big series because they need to kind of keep this from really spiraling before the break. Because we know the break is kind of where we'll sort of feel good about them getting. Real Muto comes back. Some of these pitchers will get some rest. But it's kind of imperative that they do what they can against the Dodgers and then take care of the A's. Because it is going to help them kind of keep the Braves at arm's length until the trade deadline. And then we'll get into the Phillies' tough stretch after the All-Star break, maybe next week. But it's not pretty there either. So a good week here would definitely help them.
Yeah, I think winning 2 against the Dodgers, especially, I think Gavin Stone's had a pretty good year. Bobby Miller has really good stuff. Has he been hurt? I feel like I haven't seen him pitch much.
Yeah, he's been off and on, I feel like.
So you kind of have your pitching line up in terms of favorable matchups for you. I know it doesn't matter as much as the masses would kind of suggest it does, but you are 18-12 against teams over 500. I think that might be the best win percentage in the National League, despite what mainstream Twitter trolls will tell you. So, kind of after going 2-4 to start the season against the Braves, winning 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers would definitely be good to kind of ease some of the fans, aka Alec, who lose their minds when they start to lose these games in July that realistically don't mean too much in the grand scheme of things, but it's always nice to see where they stack up now, even though we expect the roster to look a little bit different a month from now after the trade deadline, but 95% of the core will still be here, and likewise for the Dodgers too. So it's always good to have these measuring stick series halfway through the season. I think in an ideal world, believe it or not, you'd rather see Glasnow and Yamamoto just to kind of gauge what that kind of looks like against the lineup, especially since we expect at least Harper and Schwarber to be back. So, 95% of our lineup versus their ace would be, nice to see what a high strikeout guy does to them and what it could look like in October. But it doesn't mean as much as, Phillies Dodgers NLCS preview is going to be posted everywhere. I know ESPN picked up the game for Wednesday night, so a midweek national game. They're doing everything they can to market it, rightfully so, but everyone has to calm down. It's going to be July 9th, 10th, and 11th. It's not the end-all be-all if they get swept. It's not the end-all be-all if they sweep. It's a middle of the summer series before the trade deadline that will be good for narratives, and that's about it. And I'm still on the train. Call up McAble for the Oakland series and try and boost the trade value. I stand by that. I think
they might.
It's worth a shot. They got his last start wasn't awful in AAA, so ride the wave, get Mick up against Oakland, and don't let Brent Rooker get on the flight back home.
Yeah, we'll kidnap him and keep him as that free trade. We never bring his name up, but I don't feel like extending this any longer. So we could do that trade deadline preview in a couple weeks. But we'll be back next week, talk about how this week went in the All-Star break and the draft. So we'll see you then.